Hey, it's Christo Scriven here, and today I'm guiding you through the 2025 Vision Workshop, which is all about direction and discipline. What to expect in this workshop is you'll develop direction and a crystal clear vision for where you are going. A strong, repelling anti-vision, massive thing that a lot of people miss out on, and clarifying what's truly important. A lot of time we spend a lot of time working on things that aren't actually that important, and you'll become disciplined. You become maximally motivated, which will make it easier to make choices, to act, and you'll actually be able to feel good about what you're doing. A lot of people see motivation as just a feeling, just an emotion that drives you to act, but motivation is the internal process that drives all behavior, including the choice to be disciplined. So when you're maximally motivated, the choice to act, the choice to be disciplined will become much, much easier. And you won't have to force yourself to do it. It's something you're actually going to enjoy doing to the highest degree that you can when you're maximally motivated in this way. Here's why it's important: having a clear vision of the future. There is no perfect time to start anything. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. But the reason you haven't started yet is because of a pain-pleasure issue. You're associating more pain with beginning the thing, maybe failing, maybe not doing it in the perfect way, and more pleasure with staying where you are. And what we're going to do in this workshop is flip that on its head. So you see the action, the progress that you'll find through taking action more pleasurable than staying still in where you are now. You'll find it to be a very painful place without moving forward, and that's what's going to create that discipline. Clarity on where you're going gives your life more order. You know where you're going. It makes sense then. Things make sense. Your choices that you're making make sense because you're going to a certain end. If you're at a crossroads and you don't really have a direction, things aren't orderly. It's just chaos. Go left or right, it doesn't make any sense. But when you have a clear direction, you know where you're going. It gives your life more order, which then translates into more meaning, because every decision you make has a meaning when you have a clear direction. And you'll also channel more of your energy and ability towards what's important. You may have heard people say that you only really use 10% of your brain capacity. It's a thing that I used to hear when I was younger and think that's really cool. Imagine being able to use 100% of your brain capacity if you're only using 10% right now. And how you do that is by you channel your energy into a specific end. If your brain is like a computer, if it was a computer, it'd be the most powerful computer in the whole entire universe inside your head. And you are wasting its energy in distraction. So you have to have a clear vision of the future. You have to have a clear aim, a purpose for it to use its capacity to the max, to the full ability that you have. And lastly, it's important because you can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. And just as I said a moment ago, the best time to start something is right now. And you have to start changing your direction now, so in the future you can have a different destination. Okay, let's get right into it. Step one is your values hierarchy. We need to get an understanding, a clear picture of what is most important to you before trying to create a vision of the future, because you have no frame for that vision to fit into. You have no value structure to actually project a vision into. So this is really simple. First of all, write down a list of all the things that you value. Write down at least 10 things that you value. It could be something like family or traveling, meaningful work, financial freedom, friendships, having fun, anything that you find valuable. This needs to be something that is more general or an area rather than a specific thing. If you value honesty, that's a great thing to write down, but don't write down, I valued it when my partner told me the truth about this thing. That's not necessarily something you value. You valued that moment, but write down that you value honesty over a specific thing. So take about 5 minutes to do this. That's all it should take. And pause the video now before we move on. Okay, so next you should have your list down of the things that you value. You're going to go through the list and rank them from most important to least important by simply putting a number next to each point, starting with 1. So whichever point, whichever value on your list you think is the most important thing, that if you had to sacrifice, if you had to trade one thing for another, which is the one thing that is the most important to you? And put a 1 next to that one. And then what's the next thing? What's the second most important? And go all the way down until you have a number next to every one of the values. It can be quite hard to figure this out. So give yourself a few minutes and just start writing what's most important. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Pause the video now before we go on to the next point. Okay. The next point is now going through the list again and ranking each point by how much energy you've been pouring into that thing. So far, you've got your list of values. You've ranked them of what you actually think is most important to you. Now you're going to rank those values by how important you've been treating each of them. So if you have something that is your number 1 value, but actually you might realize that you've been treating the thing that is like number 8 as the most important because you've been thinking about it all the time. You've been stressing about it. You've been pouring all this energy into it. And there's a time and place for trading one thing for another because things take energy to grow and you have to pour energy into certain things, but it's a great exercise to do to get clarity on this thing. So put a letter next to each point, starting with A, starting with the thing that you've been pouring the most energy into, and go through from the most energy you've been spending on something to the least. So pause the video now before we go on to the next point. There you go. And last is just reflecting on your answers. Have you been pouring more energy and attention into things that you don't actually value as much? And do you need to recalibrate in some ways? And how does this realization put things into perspective of how you've been giving something that may have lesser importance to you more energy, too much of your own effort and attention? Okay, so now we're moving on to the next slide, which is step 2, create your vision. So with your value hierarchy in mind, imagine yourself 1 year from now, at the end of 2025. And in a present or past tense, so I am, I have, etc., write down your answers to these prompts. It doesn't have to be perfect, just write down whatever comes up. So first of all, you want to focus on how you want to feel on a day-to-day basis. How do you want to feel when you wake up? How do you want to feel before you go to sleep? How do you want to feel when you're at work? How do you want to feel when you're doing a hobby or just spending time in solitude? How do you want to feel at different times? What do you want the pervading emotions that you are experiencing to be like? Next, you want to move on to what will you be doing? How will you be using your time? So what are the actions you'll be taking? Who will you be being? Rather than being, say, the doer, you are going to be a being. You're someone who's being a person. And what does it look like when you are being yourself? What are the things that you'll be doing and how will you be using your time? And then who will you be spending time with? What will they be doing for you? What will you be doing for them? Next, we're going to go on to what things you have around you. So I think a lot of time when people set goals, they have this very superficial, physical, materialistic view. I want this thing and that thing and all these things I want to have. But those 3 points that come before this are much more important of how you want to feel every day. What will you be doing? The actions that you'll be taking and who you'll be spending time with are much more important and much more meaningful than the things that you have around you. Next is why are you doing all this? And then a question to contemplate. If you truly put yourself together in the best possible way, how good could things get? So go through these questions in this order. You can pause the video now if you haven't already paused it and just write these things out. Take 10 to 15 minutes doing this and just pour everything out that comes to mind. Great. Hopefully you've managed to write that vision out and you've got some good stuff down there that's inspiring to you. On to the next step, which is create your anti-vision. So again, imagine yourself a year from now, this time in future tense, using words like I could, I would, etc. Write down, if I ignore my growth and let fear, self-doubt, procrastination, etc. take over, where will I end up? If I don't put the effort into my own growth, if I don't develop myself, how are things going to end up by the end of the year? If I let my worst habits take hold, what kind of person will I become? And what outcome will that have in my life? How will it affect my life? And then how will my actions or lack of actions harm those I care about? What kind of effect is it going to have on the people around you? If there's something that you need to do, something that you have been saying that you're going to do, something maybe that you are going to stop, because you know it's not good for you, but you don't prioritize it. You let that thing continue. Is it only going to affect you, or is it going to affect the people around you? I had to just make a quick edit there, as this was copied over from an exercise document. But the last thing is, what would my life look like at the end of the year if everything fell apart, if I let everything go? We all have our own worst tendencies. If I was here with you right now and asking you, what is your poison? What is the thing that you know that if you didn't fight against it, if you didn't have self-control over, something that you had a tendency toward that was not constructive, that was destructive, and you let that thing take hold of you, if you stopped doing your best to actually put yourself together and keep yourself in a functional state, well, we all know what that thing would be. And if you let that thing take over, then you know where it might end up. And this is what this is all about. And when you have a vision for your life, a positive vision that you want to create, something that you are striving towards, the more and more you put that off, the more and more you lose trust in yourself, the more and more you lose confidence in yourself, and the stronger that those negative tendencies become, because you don't really truly respect yourself, because that vision that you have, that calling that you have inside of you, is part of who you are, and you are not honoring it. And when you don't honor yourself, you start to lose trust in yourself, confidence in yourself, and respecting yourself, and you'll end up treating yourself worse, which brings about a greater likelihood that your worst traits will come to the surface and you will fall into negative patterns. So this exercise can be difficult to do, but what you write is supposed to scare you, but it's also supposed to remain plausible. Again, take 10 to 15 minutes to write this down, and we'll move on to the next slide. Pause the video now. Okay, I hope you had fun with that. Moving on to the next slide. So step 4 is select your goals. So considering your value hierarchy, read through the vision you have for your future, your positive vision, the one that you wrote in the past or present tense, and write down from that vision, extract out from that vision 2 to 6 main goals that you want to work towards, and select a variety of goals that you feel initially inspired by. So something that captures your attention, whatever comes out to you, that pops out to you, something that you wanted to do maybe for a while, or something that seems exciting that you've written down in your vision, that I'm going to make a goal and write that down. So just pause the video now, however long that takes, and come back in a moment. Moving on to the next slide. Step 5 is prioritizing your aims. So what you're going to do now is rate each goal that you've written down, that you've extracted from your vision, on how good you'd feel if you achieved it. So how grateful you would be, how excited would you be, or how meaningful that goal is to you. So you're going to rank each goal between 1 and 10. 1 is no good feeling at all, or it's completely meaningless, and 10 is overwhelmed with excitement and gratitude, or it's the most meaningful thing that you could possibly do. And write that number next to each goal. Take a few minutes to do that. Pause the video now before we move on. Okay, moving on to the next thing. Now you're going to rate each desire on how much you believe you can achieve it within the next 12 months. So between 1 and 10. Again, 1 being no way it's possible at all, and 10 being is you're absolutely certain that it's achievable. There's no doubt at all in your mind. And write that number next to each goal. So pause the video now and take a few minutes to do that. So now you have 2 numbers for each goal. You're simply going to add those numbers together. So you have 1 larger number for each goal, and the higher the total, then the more of a priority that goal should be. The higher the number for each of those goals is the sweet spot, because you want to be able to believe in a goal and be more certain of its attainment, but you also want to feel excited by it. So there might be some goals on there that you feel really excited by, but you don't really believe that you could achieve them within 12 months, or there's some on there that you definitely could achieve within the next 12 months, but you don't feel really excited by. So you want to find the sweet spot. The higher the number, the better, where you are excited, you would find it meaningful, but you also really believe that you can achieve it. Great, that's it. Thank you for joining me in this workshop. Guides and workshops like this will run every week inside the Phoenix Growth community, which you can find a link to in the comments below this video. It's a community of like-minded, growth-oriented individuals there to inspire, encourage, and engage with one another and connect with one another on our unique journeys of growth. And if that sounds like something you would enjoy, that you'd like to be a part of, then just click the link in the comments and I'll see you inside.